Hi, it's me and you're watching this channel. In the public imagination, the age of dinosaurs is synonymous with giant carnivores that walked on land, Tyrannosaurus rex and friends. But the Mesozoic Era, which began 250 to million years ago, also saw the rise of other kinds of large animals, specifically in the oceans where diverse marine reptiles ruled. These weren't dinosaurs, though. The dinosaurs, technically speaking, were terrestrial archosaurs, more related to crocodiles than to the whales. And dolphins of today are to the ancient beasts swimming around them. So today we are diving into the Mesozoic seas to explore some of the real sea monsters that lived there. Life in the Triassic, Jurassic, and Cretaceous periods wasn't so sweet for animals living in the water because the same thing that killed off most life on land, the mass extinction at the end of the Triassic, also decimated ocean-dwelling animals. But soon after, new ecological opportunities arose. Some groups of marine reptiles that had been around since the Triassic exploded in diversity during the Jurassic. One such group was the Plesiosaurs. They were a type of sauropterygian, which means they were part of a larger group that also included the ancestors of modern turtles, the marine iguanas of the Galapagos Islands, and the bizarre mock turtle. Sauropterygians were extremely diverse and were the most numerous large vertebrates of the Jurassic. One of the sauropterygians was the Plesiosaur. Named in 1847 by the paleontologist Sir Richard Owen, the Plesiosauria are best known for their long necks. But early members of the group had shorter necks and more robust bodies adapted for deeper diving. As the Jurassic progressed, however, several groups of plesiosaurs evolved longer and longer necks, presumably to exploit the plentiful supply of fish in the shallow coastal waters. Some of these animals, like Hippocampsosaurus, got very long necks. Hippocampsosaurus literally means horse-tail beast, referring to its long, whip-like tail. And its neck was almost 9 meters long, about as tall as a giraffe. All told, these animals were about 13 meters long. So you can imagine how much neck there was to go around. However, while we usually picture these animals with really long necks, many plesiosaurs did not have them. For example, Plesiosaurus funki, which lived in the latest Jurassic and earliest Cretaceous, had a much shorter neck, closer to what you'd see on a modern turtle. It was still huge, though, reaching lengths of 15 meters. The largest plesiosaur ever discovered, however, was Elasmosaurus. Reaching lengths of 18 meters, it had the longest neck of any animal known to science, measuring over 11 meters in length. It was also one of the last plesiosaurs to ever live. The group died out along with all other large marine reptiles at the end of the Cretaceous. Plesiosaurs weren't the only long-necked swimmers in the Jurassic Ocean. Another marine reptile called the Ichthyosaurs was also a sauropterygian, but it was more closely related to the modern whale and dolphin than to the plesiosaur. Ichthyosaurus was more streamlined, with a narrow body and dorsal fins like a fish. Its eyes were enormous, hence the name, which comes from the Greek words for eye and lizard. Its head was flattened like an ichthyosaur and its mouth was full of small teeth used for catching fish. Ichthyosaurus was about 3 meters long and it likely swam around chasing prey like modern dolphins. While we usually think of them as being mammal-like, ichthyosaurs were actually a kind of reptile. In fact, they were more closely related to dinosaurs than they were to modern whales and dolphins, which evolved from a completely different group of ancient whales. Ichthyosaurs appeared in the Triassic period and quickly became masters of the oceans. Like the dinosaurs on land, they gave birth to live young instead of laying eggs. Ichthyosaurs were among the first vertebrates known to have done this. They also grew quickly and reached gigantic sizes. The largest of the ichthyosaurs was Himalasaurus. This animal was up to 21 meters long, making it the largest known member of the order Squamata, which includes lizards and snakes. To put that in perspective, the largest living squamate is a 7-meter-long reticulated python. Ichthyosaurs were just as successful as the dinosaurs, surviving until the end of the Cretaceous period. There was even a brief overlap between the two groups at the beginning of the Jurassic when the first dinosaurs arrived in the Americas. But while dinosaurs radiated into a variety of forms, ichthyosaurs remained basically the same, looking pretty much identical to their Triassic ancestors. The last ichthyosaurs were about the same size as the first. So maybe the dinosaurs just had more style. But if Plesiosaurs and Ichthyosaurs were so great, why don't we know more about them? Well, the problem is that they lived in the ocean, which means their fossils are harder to find than those of land-dwelling animals. The fossilized remains of marine creatures tend to get scattered by currents and waves, making them much less likely to be preserved in the fossil record. This makes studying them much more difficult, and many of our favorite extinct beasts like the megalodon are known from just a few scraps of bone. But there is one place on Earth where it is easier to study these relics of the past, and that is the fossil-rich area of eastern Canada. There, a combination of geologic good fortune and dedicated paleontologists have turned up a wealth of marine fossils, including the fossils of the largest sea monster of them all, the Mosasaurus. The Mosasaurus was a marine lizard, a type of archosaur that was more closely related to the dinosaurs than to the Plesiosaur or Ichthyosaur. They were named in 1820 by the Canadian surgeon and paleontologist William B. Rogers, who found fragments of the animal on the beaches of the Gaspé Peninsula. Mosasaurs first appeared in the Cretaceous period, probably evolving from a group of terrestrial crocodilians that returned to the oceans. They had broad, flat snouts and teeth for crushing prey. And unlike most marine reptiles, they were warm-blooded. So they would have been active predators, hunting in the open ocean. Mosasaurs were huge, growing up to 17 meters long. The largest of the Mosasaurs was the aptly named king of the dinosaurs, Teeming. It was the apex predator of the inland sea that covered much of the central part of North America during the Cretaceous, preying on everything around it. So while the dinosaurs were ruling the land, the Mosasaurs were ruling the waves. At the end of the Cretaceous, both groups went extinct. Perhaps you've heard of the asteroid. But the Mosasaur fossil site on the Gaspé Peninsula shows that the survivors didn't stick around for long. No trace of them has been found in the fossil record of the Paleogene period. So whatever happened, it happened fast. Now you know that the ocean was just as dramatic a theater for the evolution of extinct animals as the land was. And I know that there are a lot of people out there who would love to hear more about the animals that once roamed the seas. So let me know down in the comments below what your favorite extinct sea monster is, and I will make a video about it. Maybe it will be a long-necked plesiosaur, a fish-eating ichthyosaur, or the Mosasaurus, the whale-devouring tyrant of the Cretaceous seas. Or maybe it will be something we haven't even discovered yet. After all, more than half of all species that ever lived are now extinct, and many of their fossils have never even been found. So there are plenty of stories left to tell. Thanks so much for watching. If you like this video, you can check out more from us on our channel. And if you want to help support us, you can join our community on a crowdfunding platform. Our community gets access to a monthly podcast, behind-the-scenes content, and even our private server. So come on over and join us. I'll see you next time.